Hi, Kenny here, and I've been wanting to do this for quite some time. I've finally managed to get my C-stand in my little library room that I've got in the house. And I've been meaning to do this for a while because I've been meaning to show you guys, whoever's watching, my wedding portfolio. So I'm a photographer here based in Guelph. I've done probably well over 150 weddings in my decade and a half, 2 decades of working. And I want to talk about how wedding photography has kind of changed since digital came around. And I want to show you guys the work I've done and experiences I've had doing wedding photography. So this isn't necessarily like me showing off my work or showcasing it, but just to kind of talk about what perhaps, even if you're a bride or a groom, what you might want out of a wedding photographer on the day of. So I'm going to try and keep things brief, as I'm going to try to stick to the point, but I might rant. So it is what it is. So this wedding photography book, I want to show this online also because no one really kind of flips through these anymore. And I feel unless you are looking actively for a wedding photographer, you might not see one of these. What you really ought to do if you are shopping for a wedding photographer is get to know their work, obviously, but also see if they have repeatability in their clients' work. So look for a lot of clients in their portfolios. See if the work is consistent. Obviously, look up reviews. But above all, I want to emphasize, if you are shopping for a wedding photographer and looking to hire a wedding photographer or videographer for the work involved, make sure you sign a contract and read through that contract. Contracts are super important in the world of wedding photographers and videographers. And if they don't have a contract, I think that's a bit of a warning sign. And the way most photographers work is they will take a deposit. So, I personally charge a 30% on booking, and the contract stipulates a few things. Like, for example, the money isn't entirely lost. The 30% in the contract mentions me dating, saving the date, and if for some reason the wedding was not to go ahead, and that you are not required to pay the full amount. So there's things in a contract that keeps both you and the photographer safe. So it's not for the benefit. It's for the benefit of both parties. So keep that in mind. Make sure you see a contract. Make sure you look through it. Make sure you sign it. If it all sounds good. A photographer should not pressure you to book them. A videographer should not pressure you to book them. The work a developed photographer will provide and show you is their taste, their style. And if you're not on board with it, they should be able to explain the way they work as well. So I personally work in a more documentary style. I photograph kind of a fly on the wall, and then I jump in with portrait sessions when we mention and schedule them in the itinerary. So for the most part, I am a very discreet photographer, except when, after ceremonies, you want to grab the family photos, you want to have some couple time. That's where I jump in and do a little bit more direction. Couple things I personally do is I always allow the photographer to, I myself as a photographer can work with as much or as little information as the client wants to provide me. So because of my style, I've had clients simply just say, show up. We'll do half an hour walk around. We'll do some portraits, and the rest of the time, just hang out, photograph. And that's fine. I've also had clients that provide me with extensive shot lists, and that's okay too. You have to establish that working relationship early so you know what to expect on the day. And one other thing I do also request from the client is that on the day of, like, do you want to have direct contact with me? I mean by like phone. And if you don't, assign someone who will photograph, who I can photograph. And if I have questions, I can direct my questions to that person. So a contact person, essentially, right? So, I generally work alone. I photograph, most photographers work with a pair. There's a main photographer and an assistant photographer. I mostly photograph alone because of my style. It's more of a fly on the wall. I do more documentary style. I prefer to work with available light. I use flash when necessary. So I try to be unobtrusive, and the two photographer combo can be a little overwhelming. There are the one thing I've seen in my wedding experiences is there are videographers and photographers that might do a little more directing than you might like. So figure out what that pace is going to be like on the day. Like on the day of, you might not want to be constantly directed. You might just want to do your own thing and have a crew of videographer or photographer follow you. Make sure you sort that out prior to the wedding day. It'll save you a lot of hassle, and you know what to expect from a photographer. So without further ado, let's go through this work. This is a photo album that I put together with kind of sequence in mind, and kind of tells a story of a wedding. But they are from multiple weddings that I've done. And this album, this photography book, was made on blurb. I don't know if you can see the thickness on it, but it's quite chunky, right? But I believe it showcases a lot of my work, and it's a vision or finalized solid form of my work. Some getting ready photos kind of start off the day. And because I shoot mostly available light, I might sometimes direct clients to do a few things here and there if I see a good light, a good opportunity. But I try not to make it too overwhelming. Some of my favorite weddings are the casual weddings. There's not a lot of structure. They are kind of free-flowing and usually small groups. And I mean by small, like 50 to 100 guests, right? Again, some getting ready props. I particularly like this shot just due to the backlit lighting. You should hopefully see photographers showcase in the portfolios of their work where they deal with difficult lighting and can work around that. So in this case, I just love backlit situation. I think if you know what you're doing and you can knock down your exposures, they make for just very special photographs with, that light is it's there for a reason. It was there on the day, you can't downplay the fact that the way things look on the day is also a very special memory. This is a cottage wedding up in Algonquin. Still life. Some getting ready photos. As far as regards to editing, I do very little editing, surprisingly. If you think photographers do a lot of wedding edits, they do, but most of that, for me personally anyways, most of that is simply fine-tuning exposures and making selections. That's really it. There aren't, I can probably fully, I can confidently state that there isn't a lot of photoshopping other than those changes that I do on my edits. I prefer to shoot, I love black and white work, and I also deliver a color version that's color accurate and a black and white version. And that is a 2-set photograph should you choose to have a black and white set of photos. My cat's seeing a lot of birds out there. It's still pretty nice out. So, and the reason is, like, I feel like black and white, you can do such special things with black and white exposures, and it's a little bit more artistic. And I feel like that gives clients provides clients my vision of black and white work. And I'm a big black and white nerd. That's just it. This is also up in Algonquin. This is a vineyard out in Niagara. And I really like those special moments. And here's, I don't know if you can see this picture well, but they're scrubbing on the mirrors there. A little bit foggy. It's a bathroom fog. Again, some more getting ready shots. Interesting story about this particular picture. Interesting, a little bit sad. I photographed this, and this was my very first wedding that I photographed. The car's a little dated. It's an old vintage car, but this was probably in the early 2000s. I had just started working with a photo studio, and I was assigned many second shooter jobs. And finally, it was time for me to shoot as a main photographer for my very first, I guess it would be my very first wedding as a main photographer. Officially paid, I guess, because some of the first weddings were for friends. Anyways, this is after the ceremony, and she was lighting the cigarette and just taking a huge drag. And, it's a lot, right? You just got out of the church. So I saw this opportunity for a picture with her smoking the cigarette, and she may have warned me about not taking photos of smoking. But I looked at the scene, I saw this, and I just couldn't help myself. I took the picture. She had a brief look at me and just went on with her day. Sadly, I believe within 3 years of her getting married, she passed away from colon cancer. But this is my very first wedding, and like hours in, because the ceremony was happening just after I arrived. And yeah, just an interesting story, but and quite sad story. But I have this picture. I have a very large framed image of it, photographed on my old Canon 5D. And those old cameras, they really do provide good enough resolution to print like 30 by 40. That's the story of that one there. There's one thing I tell my photography students when I do teach, is that a photograph should and could have 4 elements that really tell you that it's a good photo. And I use this, I call it a diet principle, and I've heard it somewhere and it stuck with me. And that is, if a photograph has design, diet, D is for design, E is for emotion, I is for information, and T is for timing. If you have a photograph that has 4 of those elements, you've got a pretty darn good photo. So, and things that you can play with timing is just like, aerosol. I just liked how the contrast of the dark and white of the mist just kind of makes that form. And, it's a split moment in time, right? That the camera is capable of capturing. Muskoka. This is one of the vineyards out in Niagara. And again, just the black and white. This set of photographs, I do feel like I have a good number of black and white and color that kind of showcases both. He's apparently a kind of well-known Canadian actor. I didn't know that, but again, this is one of those shots, just not not directed, just timed and just being on the ball, making these little captures. This was shot in the church. Again, available light, backlit, but you should be able to see photographers deal with difficult lighting situations in any of their work. Just kids being kids. This was actually shot on a Holga, and a Holga is a 6x6 film camera comes from China, well, made in China, and it's got a plastic lens, plastic body. I think nowadays it's quite pricey, but back in the day it was fairly cheap. And I brought some fun cameras sometimes to do just something to keep me, just something to keep things interesting and experiment with, while still shooting my usual setup. The Distillery District in Toronto. Many weddings have happened there. It's a well-known, popular wedding spot. I believe this is the RCYC on Toronto Island. And usually when there's good light, like in the evenings, the sun is setting, the couples had their first, they've gotten a chance to sit down and have a bite. And after their mains, I usually ask them to kind of come out with me. We'll take a few shots when the lighting is when the sun's setting, and just gives them that breakup where they can just go out and spend time with each other. And I snap a few shots. This one is actually done with a little bit of bounce lighting. So I do use flash when there is a necessity for it, but I do not primarily, I just don't blindly shoot with a flash unless it's needed, and I believe it makes a difference. I try to be as discreet as possible. This is a wedding in Ottawa. This is one of the heritage homes, I believe. There is quite a bit, so I will fly through these. This is a Nigerian wedding. Just a candid moment here. Again, backlit, church. This is in one of the bigger cathedrals in Ottawa. Kids being kids. A lot of black and white. It was a good day for black and white, apparently. Just details, little details that kind of tell the story. Back in the days, photographers might show up at your wedding with 10 rolls of film, and that's it. The wedding industry's kind of changed since digital has come around. And the one thing I tell people who are kind of exploring whether or not they want to photograph weddings is that the reality of wedding photography is that you have unlimited shots, and other photographers out there are working with unlimited potential. And as a result, to make your work stand out, you really do have to shoot more. And that's kind of, if you're looking at putting two wedding photographers out there, or two photographers in general, you give them both like a roll of film to shoot. What they choose to come back with is clearly obvious. But when you have a photographer or two that can go out there and take unlimited photos and shoot all day, which you can with modern day digital cameras, the potential of work it's wild. So it really, digital has become a bit of a leveler in the way that you do have to step up. You cannot just show up and take 100 photos and call it a day. And it's become more competitive, and I think that's okay. I love getting reflections in my shots. I'm going to see if I can throw a little light down here. Hopefully that helps. I don't think it kind of does. I'm just going to do that. Bigger group photo here. And I've photographed various different cultural backgrounds, and every wedding, depending on the ethnicity and culture, is different, and they have different traditions. And sometimes it doesn't hurt to ask very specific questions if it relates to you as a working photographer. And, you know, a photographer should take interest in what your plan for the days involve. This is one on the farm. Another thing when it comes to other guests with cameras, don't hire a photographer, and I'm going to be pretty blunt with this. Don't hire a photographer that's going to put restrictions on how your guests can show up and photograph. You know, there are people out there that are just as passionate about photography, and they want to show up to a wedding and take photographs. I am all game for that. I will work around anything you throw at me. This is not a concern. And I hear this a lot from like events where like they don't want people photographing. And again, if it's like a copyright privacy thing, that's fine. But there is no reason why a guest can't show up at your wedding and photograph and do the things they want to enjoy and have a pleasant day. So I'm all for that. I might photograph them photographing, but you know. Dinner hours. This is the Island Clubhouse, and I believe it burnt down just a year ago. But this is a wedding that was held there. I believe it's the Island Cafe. And it's unfortunate, but they're doing a rebuild, and it's I was there this past summer, and it was looking really good. This one is a little wild. They had an elephant downtown, just off of Bloor and Windsor. This is the Windsor Hotel, I believe. Windsor Arms. And this elephant came all the way in from a zoo in Belleville. Bouquet toss always makes for good, interesting photos. Exciting. Some more getting ready. I'm going to have to flip through these. I love this shot, personally, just the way it's framed in that reflection. And I was quite proud of getting the exposure here with just that going on right on the wood. Really like that one. Some more getting ready. Details, information. And I suppose I'm a photographer that follows the action. And if there isn't action, then I kind of default to capturing guests, capturing other things that go on, the quirky stuff. And I do want to say, like, I think most photographers work this way. They have a mode where they are showing up to deliver the work, obviously, but also what I particularly enjoy is once I've documented, I start my little priority list. And that priority list sometimes, most of the time, just ends up, for me, it's a way for me to get to doing my trick shots. This is just one of those. And it's one of those where I've done all the things I think I'm supposed to do, and I'm looking out for like the weird stuff, the quirky stuff, and ideas that come to mind. And I do feel a good working photographer should be able to establish the key shots and then get to these, because, you know, weddings do have a very strict, specific narrative, but it's also a way to have fun once you've gotten past the necessities, right? The pose shots are done, the groupings are done. You can get to the fun stuff. And I love that about the days of shooting a wedding, where you just get to kind of unwind a bit, you get to experiment, and you get some cool stuff. This is also on the island as well. I took the shot driving, but I mean, come on. I really had to. I was using a long lens, so I wasn't following too close. I really like this image for the foreground, midground, and background. It just all kind of ties into the frame so well. You know, clearly this is not a thing you see every day these days. The CD tower, so it dates itself. That's information for you. Some real peeing going on here, not staged. It's always funny when you show up to a wedding and you see stuff like this, is like how to tie a tie. And, you know, clearly the younger demographic of couples getting married, the older ones are okay. They tend to do pretty okay. Big group photo out in the vineyard. Really like this one. I think I used a telephoto, just a very shallow depth of field. Backlit. You do get once in a while you do get someone who's getting a little snarky with how you work as a photographer, and you know everyone else thinks they're photographers. And I remember there's a couple of situations where like, oh, like you really want to photograph here? It's backlit. I'm like, yeah, I want to photograph here. It's backlit. Oh, this reminds me of a photo that it's not in. I don't believe it's in this album, but I had a client. I shot a client's wedding, and it was like near midnight, and they were in the backyards with these sparklers, and they had some extras. So we started playing around with them, and they were trying to write out love, and I was using like a 2-second, 3-second exposure. And the word was not love, the word was cock. And literally it was COCK. I don't know how we got to that, but it was a funny photo when I saw it. I hope it's in here, but I don't know. Distillery. Some silhouettes, experimental silhouettes there. Drawers. The good old, oh geez, the toss. I don't know if people still do that. I feel like I haven't seen one of these in a while. 1997. Oh, this is the year they took those photos. Got to photograph the cake. Got to photograph the cake cutting. I love a good fun cake cutting. So I still do photograph weddings from time to time. And I do love the challenge and the thrill of a wedding. It's 8 hours, 10 hours on your feet and taking a bunch of photos and working on the fly. It's great. I love shooting weddings, unless it's a back-to-back wedding, like a Saturday wedding and a Sunday wedding. It's a little tough. But it does force you to, think quickly on your feet and work with what's in front of you. And I enjoy that challenge about event work and photography work. So I believe this is a BB gun, so nothing crazy. Yeah, so this is my wedding portfolio. I still photograph weddings. If you want to look me up, I've got some info there. And if you are looking to hire a wedding photographer, please make sure they have an album that showcases the depth of their work, and make sure you see a contract. So, thanks for watching. I know this is a bit of a long one, but the weather is not great, and I want to do stuff. I do want to start doing things that are a little bit more photography focused and around my work too. So, thanks for watching. Bye.